What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some trance, and this is some hard trance, and it's a tune I mentioned in my reaction to Bleep and Booster, if I say that correctly, and their tune Let the Bass Kick, which is to say the John the Dentist remix of Let the Bass Kick is the penultimate tune on side A of my mixtape, and that's of my officially produced actual cassette mixtape from 1999, which is the only one I still have, and the only one that I paid to get, properly produced with, colored cassettes, and, there was graphics on both the case and the tape. Now, I made a lot of tapes back then, including other tapes that I gave to promoters and other tapes that I got gigs through, but that one I got the most gigs through, and it was the most professional, so it was the one that I think the promoters who I gave it to were like, oh, okay, I'll keep you in mind. And as I think I mentioned, I ended up playing for a troupe called Neo Sapiens and their party Primal Trance, and they used in their hotline, because back in the day for raves, you didn't typically get an address, and if you did get an address, it was usually for the checkpoint, and then you go to that address and they'd give you the address of the party. And in some cases it was actually like a daisy chain, it'd be like 3 places, because in some cases they just didn't have permits, so it was sort of like, a way of weeding out perhaps, people undercover cops or something like that, but that was the way it used to be. And on the hotline for that Primal Trance party, they used this track, which comes after Let the Bass Kick in my mix, side A, which again is on YouTube already. But this track is Jesus Is Here by E-Raver. And it's, it's one of those tunes, and I believe Vinyl Fetish, as you can see up here, which is the Vinyl Fetish off of Vermont. I don't think it exists anymore. There used to be one off of Melrose, which is perhaps the more famous one, and where there were other record shops off of Melrose. But the one on Vermont, there were a couple people who worked there who were also DJs in the trance and techno scene and hard house scene, and they sort of put aside records for me. So that became kind of my main go-to place to buy records. And the point is, one day I was flipping through, and that's the thing about old school record shops, sometimes you look at a record that the name didn't particularly stand out to me. E-Raver almost felt comical, is making fun of the raves and underground parties where people use drugs. It seems sort of like a on the nose type of name, but I picked it up anyway, and I went to the listening station, started going through records, and then I listened to this, and it was like, oh crap. That's a track that, it set my brain on fire. It has this wickedness to it. It's not particularly evil or anything, but it has this wicked darkness to it, and it's this driving hard trance. And secondarily, I had this thought that I bet you if I play this at a party, it'll hit. And not only did the first time I play it at a party, which was I think a party for the Something Fresh people, and it was at the Masterdome in San Bernardino, not only did it hit big, but as I said, eventually I got a gig through it, and the people who gave me the gig used that track, or this track, in my tape for their hotline kind of background music on the night of the event. So that's a long way of saying this is a tune that does seem to catch people unawares, and that they seem to enjoy. Tend to seem feels like a very wordy, mealy-mouthed sentence. In any case, I'll stop wasting everyone's time with words. Let's listen to E-Raver, Jesus Is Here, and we're going to listen to the original 12-inch mix, which is not actually the longest version. There's what is it called? The Devotion mix, which is a little bit longer, but this one I think is the main, or original version of the tune. You're like, just play the track already, man. It's kind of what it was like, though, on my original channel when it was just techno and trance. It's just telling stories of old parties and so on. That layer creeps in when you're mixing into this. When I got this and started playing it, all my friends who I would go to parties with were like, oh crap, what was that track that kind of had that wicked horn in it? It's let me tell you. Hey Paul, you don't have to be Paul anymore, because Jesus is here. That's the line. What's it from? You tell me. my great ears. Could be something else. The menacing bass line. And little acid squiggle. That again, like instant goosebumps, and it's like I can't tell you what this track would do to parties. Like people wandering in from, like sometimes people hanging out in the hallways, like between the rooms, and people would like. The connection, but up the kick, suddenly you realize the power. Literally redlining a little bit once it comes clear like that. Wicked. Absolute banger. As I said, it was a track I didn't really expect to find. Nobody was playing it. It wasn't a tune that, you know, again, because sometimes you'd hear a tune. Like I remember there's a track by Pablo Gargano, Ultimate Frontier. I had already known his tunes by that point, although they were just Eve tunes because he didn't put his name on them, because it was like senza volto, without face. The idea that, you know, this is music, it's not about me and my ego. Again, Pablo Gargano is just a legend. Like, I can talk about him all day. But the point is, like, there were tracks I would hear on other DJs' mixtapes or at, you know, sets from other DJs that I went, or that I heard at parties, where I'd be like, oh man, that's a killer tune. I gotta get that track. I gotta find that track. Although in a lot of cases there were no track lists in the mixtape, so it was like, you know, good luck figuring it out. Sometimes you did, sometimes 15 years later you're putzing around on Discogs and you're like, oh my god, it's that tune. But yeah, I do remember when I heard this, I was like, so I've never heard this track. Nobody's playing this tune. Like, people are gonna they're gonna love this track. So yeah, I really, it really was a cool thing to get this tune in my arsenal, because it became sort of a calling card. Because again, like, nobody else was playing it. Shout out to E-Raver, whose real name I think is Sven. It's like Sven Maes, like Maes. So I don't know quite how you pronounce the surname, but yeah, a top tune. Shout out to him. Shout out to all the people and places I mentioned during this reaction, which again is sort of a throwback to my old channel. So I'll try to be a bit less verbose and storyful next time. But do let me know what you think of the tune, and I will see you then. Peace. As I hit my elbow again.